How long do you think you could hold this position for? 1 minute? 10 minutes? An hour? Hi, I'm Daniel Degener, the hypnophysio from the Rethink Pain Workshop. In this presentation, I'm going to tell you how I achieved 1 hour of this position in order to get my black belt in Haidong Gumdo, the Korean sword martial art that I train with. And how I did this with the Melorheostosis in my right hand. Whether you are someone who is impacted by Melo, a health professional wanting to learn how to reduce other people's pain, this presentation will have something for you. At the end of the video, you'll have the opportunity to learn how to use self-hypnosis in a way that I've used with a lot of my physiotherapy patients over the years to help them accomplish their goals too. But let's begin where it all started. When I was a kid, I was about 10 years old when I started to notice the effects of the deformity just in my finger. I noticed it playing video games, and I didn't have quite endurance on the Super Nintendo as my friends. And then by my teenage years, it was starting to get numb, ache, soreness in my fingers, and ache through the finger here into my palm. And this was something that nobody could tell me why. I started off living in Saskatchewan in Canada, moved when I was 13 to the east coast in Nova Scotia, so I had different specialists at the children's hospitals that couldn't give me a reason why. I had a contracture release attempted when I was 13 that ended up being a failure because now looking at the research, contracture releases in Melorheostosis in kids, not really high success rate. I continued to develop worsening symptoms of having weakness in the hands, and in my early 20s, I went to a specialist that I had nerve conduction tests and had moderate impingement of this median nerve. And the specialist, after going through, you have Dubbertons and comptodactyly and all of these things, I was like, no, I don't have these. I've done the research. I don't have those. He said, I don't know what you have, but I'll do a carpal tunnel release for you. Backed away out of that space. I went in to get my Bachelor of Science in Human Kinetics to better understand the body so I could better support myself. And by my mid-20s, I had more nerve conduction tests, and it showed I had severe carpal tunnel impingement. And for no known reason, this was a pretty scary thing for me at that time. I was only able to hold on to things for a minute or so, riding a bike, writing, typing, or any kinds of things that I needed to use my right hand. And I am a right-handed person. I would have to shake it out, massage, and always take this constant breaks. I had a constant awareness of a sensation of pain in my hands that sometimes got to a really high elevated space. I then went and got more school. I went and got my master's in physio for myself. I figured, I'll be able to help some other people, but I got to figure out what to do with myself. And maybe the professors will be able to give me some answers of what I have. They all had their theories, but nothing really stuck. I graduated, moved across the country with my soon-to-be wife, who I met in my physiotherapy school, and we lived in northern Alberta in a small little place called Slave Lake. I then went through the Alberta healthcare system, went through the specialist, and I got a specialist that was 3 months out of her degree and basically said, I have no clue what you got, but we're going to do a full workup and see what happens. It was the x-ray from that, and this is the x-ray. There's a link in my bio on the booth, but also my website, and it showed the waxy dripping all the way through my finger and into the carpal bones, which helped to explain the impact, the severe carpal tunnel impingement of the nerves and the numbness and pains and aches that I was getting at that time. So she said, I don't know if the carpal tunnel release would be a good idea, but I think it would be beneficial. And at that point, I just started the idea of getting a diagnosis of something, of Melorheostosis. Man, all of you know that flood of emotions of finally an answer, and then holy shit, this is not that nice. And going through that experience, I reached out to one of the doctors. I can't even remember the name now, but hopefully he's here in this conference and remembers me, and said that there was one patient that he had with Melorheostosis in the hands that had a carpal tunnel release with positive results. Now this surgery it's something that has a just over 50% success rate over a 5-year period, and you can only get 2 to 3 in your life. So it was something that I really wanted to know that I could do something for myself to improve how I felt. I got the carpal tunnel release in 2014, and I had reasonable success, but I also used it as an opportunity to step up my daily routine, find ways that I could do things for myself to improve how I felt. I moved to New Zealand in 2015 and started to feel I could push myself. My routine was getting better. I was understanding more about pain, healing, the body. I'd already been giving pain education presentations for a few years and working with people with complex and persistent pain. And at that time is when I started Haidong Gumdo, Korean sword martial art, about 2016. And I was told right from the beginning about the ordeal. It is 1 hour of Dungeon Ho, the over the hands over the head and knees together in a horse riding stance, held for 1 hour. And then right afterwards, you have to do 1,000 cuts of a sword. I thought, okay, that's 3 years away. I'll figure it out when it happens. Then 3 months before I was supposed to be doing it, I got called out. It was a December grading. Master Gary, head of Haidong Gumdo New Zealand, said, all right, you're doing the ordeal. And I was scared. I didn't think I could do it. Not because that seems like an impossible task for anybody to do, but because I thought I have more of a reason with this meloheostosis in my hand. The first thing I remembered was 4 years prior to that, I had an MRI, one of the MRIs that helped to diagnose the meloheostosis as well. And my arm, when I was lying flat with my arm supported overhead, they had to stop the MRI after about 15-20 minutes because I was experiencing the worst pain to date that I'd ever felt in my arm. Because I had so much neural tension in my hand and my arm that I wasn't able to sustain that position. And I thought, how am I going to hold this actively for an hour if I couldn't even passively hold it up for 20 minutes? That got me, at that time, I was also getting into hypnosis. It was something that I had my first session just a little while before that, which helped me to realize that if I can overcome a rare condition that the primary symptom is pain, and do so with grace, I can help to inspire others to do the same with their conditions. And this kind of confidence in this new tool that I was learning helped me develop what the Rethink Pain Workshop is now, the Pain Game, which is a self-management tool I'll talk about a little bit later. And this is what I brought into this experience going into the ordeal. It's like, okay, I got this hypnosis. I'm just learning about it, and I got to be able to use it in some way that I can change and be able to do this. Because I didn't want to just achieve this for 1 hour. Any of the people that I talked to, my instructor, said it was the worst pain they experienced in their life. Like, yeah, I've been there, done that. I got this going on. And so to challenge some of these negative beliefs and unhelpful beliefs, I went to a fellow hypnotist, Lori Hammond. She had a group hypnosis session. And she challenged me. She asked me, what would complete healing look like? I thought, complete healing? I have a condition that's a progressive condition. How am I going to have complete healing? She's like, well, just ask yourself that. What would complete healing look like? See if you have an answer for next week. So I was thinking, and I thought, well, if I can reverse the effects of meloheostosis using mind-body-based techniques like hypnosis and daily active routines, and look at breaking down some of that bone instead of developing it, or at least stopping it, that would be complete healing, because I would be able to do more and I'd feel empowered. So when I told her that the next week, she said, all right, use empowering questions and how can I reverse the effects of meloheostosis today and have a great time doing it? And I knew there was a 0.00001% chance of me actually degrading the bone, breaking it down, and reversing the effects. But my belief and saying and asking the questions and pursuing that complete healing, it shifted something in me. And at one point, I just felt, you know what, I can do this. I can do an hour of Dungeon Ho. And then I went into the experience the day of, going up, feeling confident, feeling ready to do it. And the head of Haidong Gumdo New Zealand, Master Gary, goes on and tells a story about when he did the experience. that there was a big, massive, burly guy that was next to him that cried for the last 7 minutes of the experience, and they thought he was having this epiphany. No, he just said it was so much pain he couldn't do anything except sob uncontrollably. And the cool thing is, I was like, cool, that was his experience. My experience is going to be different. I went in and I had a pinch in my calf for the first 5 minutes that I was able to zero out using a hypnotic technique. And then I went through, I was smiling, I was laughing, I was enjoying the experience, and my body was shivering and quivering and all the kinds of things to say that it was physically challenging. But I was able to complete it, and that completely transformed my idea of what I am capable of doing. And now skip ahead a few years. I've been running the club. After I got the black belt, I took over the club from the previous instructor. I've trained multiple other people to accomplish this ordeal, including youth, which is just phenomenal to see them be able to accomplish that kind of a thing. And recognize that regardless of the physical conditions and the underlying things that are happening inside our body, our thoughts and beliefs about those conditions significantly impact how we feel. Now, this is stuff with hypnosis and some of the training. This is the stuff I teach my Haidong Gumdo martial artists, my patients. And I have just recently, I've trained a few black belts now already. And one of my members who's getting his black belt in December, he is a world champion for his age group in World Olympia. We had an online competition and he beat out the entire world. And he integrates the knowledge that I'm going to provide to you today on a regular basis. So this is some pretty powerful stuff, and I'm confident because I've seen it in myself and I've seen it in the people I work with. But before we get into the hypnosis, I want to talk about what is pain and what we can do about it. Now there's a model. Some of the doctors and specialists, you might have an understanding of this model. It's called the triune model. Now, this model, and apologies if I'm a little old school, I love technology, but sometimes I just like to write things down. This triune model is something that dates about 50 odd years, 60 years, and it's something when neurology and neuroscience was just starting to come into existence. This model was a way to understand the development of the brain. So we have our big, beautiful brains here, and we have 3 different areas that our brains develop. The first is your survival and old brain. Sorry, a little bit of a brain lapse on that one. So this is the oldest part of your brain. This is your brain stem, your medulla, your parts of the brain that control your breathing, your heart rates, all the things you need to survive. So of course that part of the brain is going to be the first to develop in the womb. The second part of the brain to develop is your limbic system, your emotional memory system. So you have places like your hippocampus, which deals with long-term memory consolidation. You have your amygdala, that's your fight, flight, or freeze response if a fire alarm goes off, bing, 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 or if you're experiencing a lot of pain. You also have a part that's called the anterior cingulate cortex, and this is a part that regulates our emotional decision-making and our empathy. And if someone is feeling a lot of this and pain, it makes it a bigger experience. Then this last part of the brain to develop is your neocortex, and this is your thinking brain. This is the stuff that is our language, our memory and sensory segments of the brain, our vision, everything that makes us us. And there's a spot in the front here, this prefrontal cortex, that makes us uniquely human. This is our decision making, our thinking. And if we think about these 3 developments of the brain, well, we can think of 2 loops. The first is this 1-2 pain loop. This is active anytime that you experience pain or that you have to survive. And this is a very dense connection of nerves that are very fast and are good at what they do. The other loop in the brain is a little bit more complex, a little bit longer, and it's that 2-3 thriving loop. Now this thriving loop is something that's active when you do something that you enjoy. when you're doing something that you love, when you're engaged and focused in a task, and maybe even watching this presentation right now, where your awareness of your pain is less. And in spite of your experience, when I ask what is pain, one thing that connects all of the answers, because I ask this for every single person, even for you right now, think, what is pain? What is the definition, how it works, whatever comes to mind. And the thing that's important to recognize is that pain is real. It's a memory system. And pain is so unique that no matter how good our technology gets, I'll never be able to experience your pain and you'll never be able to experience mine. And because of that, we need to treat each individual person uniquely, but also each individual experience of pain. This 1-2 pain loop that's active every time that you experience pain, this is something that when you have melorheostosis, well, what's happening in the brain to, for some, provide ongoing persistent pain, but for others, they're okay. Some people will get coincidental diagnoses of melorheostosis after having a fracture or an ankle sprain or something, and then they're like, what's going on in your bone? They were totally, completely fine. So what's different in those people? Well, this pain loop, this 1-2 pain loop, it can become more sensitive. There's a whole bunch of, I could spend a week talking about the neurological and biochemical reactions in the body that creates this sensitivity. But the simple way to think of it is that pathway. Let's take my hand for an example. When I was a teenager and it started to ramp up, that pathway went from a path to a road to a superhighway, and it was constantly active, just over and over and over. It got super easy for that to turn on. And it took a change in order for me to start to break down this pathway and engage that thriving loop. So anything that I teach, it's all about turning on that thriving loop, and hypnosis is one way that does it really well. There's some research, a lot of really cool research with functional MRI machines for looking at the effects of hypnosis, whether you call it a focused state or whatever it is. We'll get a little bit into the definitions of hypnosis in a moment. But there's a part of the brain, this prefrontal cortex that I was talking about. It is an area that is increased when you're in a hypnotic or focused state, or a meditative state as well. And what that means is that if you're turning on this part of the brain, that means that you are breaking down and inhibiting that pain loop. Because multitasking is a myth. This idea, multitasking is a myth. It's really important because you might have an administrator who is on the phone and writing and looks like they're doing two things at once. And then all of a sudden they get someone with a really thick Scottish accent and they're listening, and then they're like, oh, okay, wait, what, writing down a little bit, oh, and then they miss that. You're going back and forth between the listening and the writing loops of the brain. And you might have those areas of the brain connected so strongly that it seems like it's happening at the same time, but in reality, it's bouncing back and forth between those spaces. So even for you, if you're experiencing pain because of the melorheostosis that you have in your body, and you have a fairly regular, constant awareness of that sensation, that pathway is going to be very strong. But there are moments, you can think of little moments, little light bulb moments, even in your life, that you're engaged in that thriving loop, that you're doing something that you love and enjoy. And in those moments, that awareness of that sensation of pain is less. And that's because multitasking is a myth. So when you provide an environment of healing, of calm, of peace, of relaxation, that is important. And every moment is important. That's the really cool thing about this model, is it promotes that every single breath, every single intention, every single redirect of a thought is important to your rehab. It's not just the 3 sets of 10 physiotherapy exercises or the medication that you take once a day or a few times. It's about each and every moment finding a way to bring in that healing that you deserve and that you are capable of. Now, what do you think of when you hear the word hypnosis? Maybe it's empowering people to reduce pain, improve sleep, manage stress, fear, anxiety, and promote healing. Yeah, probably more like clucking like a chicken, mind control, and old James Bond villains, eh? And that was something that I was in that latter group as well. It wasn't until I started seeing and experiencing it a little bit, and I found that hypnosis is actually a therapeutic modality that's been successfully used for hundreds of years to treat a wide variety of conditions. And it's simple enough for anybody to learn as well. I have a business partner, Damian Taylor, and he did a recent systematic literature review as part of his master's degree, and he concluded that hypnosis is a useful and effective psychological intervention for managing persistent musculoskeletal pain. That's Melo. That is musculoskeletal. It is part of the muscle and the bones, and in that space, this persistent or chronic, if you use that word, which I don't like, that's a soapbox for another day, replace chronic with persistent. Soapbox done. But he examined the physiological mechanisms of how hypnosis works and might produce this change, and found that hypnosis affects a wide variety of the brain of those areas, some of which I talked about in the triune, but much more than just that. And this idea of modern hypnosis actually started with an Austrian physician, Franz Mesmer, and that was 1738 to 1815 is when he lived. And he cured people by mesmerizing people through focused, complex movements of his hands and gestures and magnets. And Mesmer's underlying theory of animal magnetism in these movements was actually debunked. But it led the way for other, and by the way, that also lends itself to some of the misconceptions we have about hypnosis, because he was a very theatrical person. However, people like physicians like James Braid, who in 1943 coined the term hypnosis, he determined it was a particular sleep state or trance after focused attention. It was the focused attention of the movements that the person had that then allowed them to bring into a space that they could create this change that was necessary. Now, clinical hypnosis is lacks a widely accepted definition because of the challenge of defining a process of the mind. Psychiatrist Milton Erickson, so he was born in the early 1900s, died in 1980. He's arguably one of the most influential hypnotists of all time. He defined hypnosis, or defined this idea of an unconscious mind as being made up of all of your learnings from your lifetime, many of which you've forgotten, but which still serve you in your automatic functioning. It was Erickson's perspective that hypnosis was a means of communicating with the unconscious mind and accessing this reservoir of resources held within. Now, before Damian and myself learned hypnosis, we wanted to explore some of the research, and that's where Damian actually went and got his master's, and part of that was exploring the research. And there's actually a significant body of work exploring the effectiveness of it. There's a recent meta-analysis by Thompson in 2019 involving 85 studies, and it demonstrated a meaningful reduction in pain and related outcomes in hypnosis interventions compared to the no intervention controls. There's another summary of reviews looking at acute clinical pain. This is Stobe et al. In 2009, and found hypnotic analgesia is consistently resulted in greater decreases in pain compared to no treatment or standard care. And hypnosis compared favorably to interventions such as medical management, physiotherapy, and education. And I thought that was really important to recognize that hypnosis, I'm a physio, and I see, hey, in some situations, hypnosis can be even more effective than physio. And I am a big advocate of physio, and in the Melo group, you'll always see me talking about find a good physio, find a good movement exercise routine. And sometimes hypnosis can actually be more effective than that. So hypnosis is a non-invasive, non-pharmacological, well, that's a big word, non-pharmacological intervention. I think I still messed it up, but that's fine. With no significant reported side effects or safety concerns. And my business partner Damien, he found a high level of evidence that hypnosis is an effective tool across a large variety of these musculoskeletal conditions that contribute to someone's persistent pain. And hypnosis can be used as a standalone treatment or as an adjunct to other interventions. And that's where I come in, where we both come in with this hypnophysio approach, looking at exercising the mind and the body. Now, there's still more research that needs to be put out there for hypnosis, and I want to be a part of that going into the next years going forward. However, I know that hypnosis is a technique that can be easy to learn and use for the treatment of pain, and it fits well within this physio and our medical model, our biopsychosocial medical model. And I've seen some pretty amazing results with it so far, not to mention my own self. Now, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I want to de-hypnotize and demystify some of the misconceptions about hypnosis out there. And that's because Damien and I have found a really wide variety of clinical applications for managing pain. And it can be used sometimes for deeper focused states as a tool for isolating and working with those underlying psychological drivers that are underpinning a person's experience of pain. And this is how I believe hypnosis helped for me. Because now I use a sword on a regular basis. I'm going for my third dan in a few months, and my third dan black belt, and I still have the melorheostosis. And when I first learned about it, it's a progressive condition. Now I see it as a potentially progressive condition, because I've had x-rays, I think it was a few years ago, that showed no change to the melorheostosis in the recent years. Could be coincidence, but I believe that I had some impact on it, because I am thriving now. I am able to use a sword. I still have to manage my condition. I still have to do exercise. I have to meditate. I have to use self-hypnosis. I have this daily routine that if I do too much, I just need to take a step back. But that's okay, because compared to where I was 10 years ago, I would have never thought that I would be able to use a sword on a regular basis, that's for sure. I understand now the fear that I had of the unknown, the anxiety that I had, not knowing. I remember very specifically, I don't know how I'm going to be in a month, let alone a year or a decade or 50 years from now. And that scared the hell out of me. The frustration, not being able to do the things that I loved, the anger that came from that, all of that emotional impact, that is things that ramped up that pain survival loop. And I was in that constantly. The fear and those thoughts was always present in association with that experience. And reflecting back, it's the recognizing my hand and accepting the condition, and then recognizing the power my body has to heal and the changes I can make by being able to do the dungeon hoe position. Those were the two biggest leaps in my ability to manage and heal. And that's not by chance. I worked my ass off, and I spent a lot of time each day working and focusing on challenging those negative and unhelpful beliefs. Because this is the thing. I have this condition. I have melorheostosis. And yet, I believe that I can still continue to improve. I truly do believe that from all of the experiences that I've had and all of the people that I've supported over the years as well. I see hypnosis as an opportunity that can change some of those other aspects of a person's pain experience. The fear, the anxiety, the stress, the tension, all of those things wind up that pain survival loop. And I'm all about finding ways to just engage that thriving loop. Whether it's a breathing routine or exercise or self-hypnosis, it's about finding ways that you can just relax. To turn on that rest, digest, and heal system, that parasympathetic nervous system, and to turn down that fight, flight, or free system, that sympathetic nervous system. Now, I'm going to give you an opportunity to experience a form of self-hypnosis that I teach to my patients on a regular basis in order to help to reset the mind and body, promote healing, and to reduce pain. So this is something that if you are someone who's experiencing pain or discomfort or stress or anxiety, any kind of negative emotions or sensations around melorheostosis, then play along, bring a childhood curiosity into this and a focus, and you may be surprised at the results. If you are a health professional who doesn't have this experience, tune into something else that you want to change. With COVID, we got lots of different stressors and anxieties, but pick something that you want to change, a feeling, an emotion, a sensation that you want to change. And notice it whoever you are, notice it in your body right now. Rate it between 0 is no experience of that. 10 is the worst that you've experienced. Rate between 0 and 10. And if you hear a baby in the background, that is my wife with one of my twins. They're almost a year old. She's doing the mom duty right now to allow me to do this presentation. So you might hear a bit of babbling or screaming with probably a bum change right now. And that's just going to help to deepen this state anyway. So that 0 to 10, pick that number. We're aiming for 0. And this is the thing with hypnosis. I've had a few patients where within one single session, I've been able to completely eliminate their experience of pain. It doesn't happen very often. Everything has to be lined up perfect. That person needs to be ready at threshold and physically healed from that condition to allow for that to happen. And yet, what I'm teaching you right now is how to use this as self-hypnosis on a regular basis to continually change and adapt those negative and unhelpful beliefs and attitudes about pain, but also the sensation itself. So that number, we're aiming for 0, but just to enjoy your day a little bit more, to enjoy this conference, what number between 0 and the one that you chose would allow you to feel better about yourself? So now you should have a number of where you're at and where you want to be with that ultimate goal of eliminating it. Now this is a what I call the hypnotic space. It's a combination of a bunch of different techniques. And remember, it's hypnotic in nature, so don't do it if you're driving a vehicle or anything like that. And it's best if you can put headphones in, be in a calm and quiet space for the technique as well. In a moment, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths. And as I take those deep breaths, I want you to take those breaths as well. The first breath will make your eyelids just feel a little bit tired. The second breath will make them so tired that they'll just want to close. And the third breath, you'll close them and find that you just won't be able to open them. Want it to happen, expect it to happen, and watch it happen. Here's the first breath. In and out. Second breath. Just notice fluttering the eyes, how they just start to close. Just getting more relaxed. And then that third breath. And out. As your eyes just close, and you can let them stay closed. And you might find that they're so tired that they just don't want to open. And close them. And notice that at any time you can choose to open your eyes, but right now you want to choose the relaxation that comes with keeping them closed. And that's right, they're locked completely. If you try to open them, they just feel like they don't want to. And then you can take that feeling and allow it to just relax even further with your eyes closed. And I want you to imagine that you're walking down a path, a safe path that you walked many times before, or maybe something new altogether. And remember that we all experience the world in our minds and in our realities differently. Some people are more visual. As you're walking down that path, you may notice the different things that you see, the colors that you see, the wildlife or animals or spaces that you are. And yet others may be able to focus more on the crunching of the feet and the sounds around you. And yet others might be more of that feeling of being able to move into that space and that comfort and relaxation and that concept of being in that space, walking down that path. And just remember that whatever you notice is the most important thing. And allow that to follow you through to this space. And as you walk down that path, I want you to imagine that you're walking down a path to a space where all of your experiences are stored. All of the good experiences that you've had in the past, all the love, the joy, the laughter, and the ones that you perceive as bad. Maybe it was the diagnosis of melorheostosis, the pain, the suffering. I want you to walk towards that space because knowing you can be in that space safely and comfortably. Because it's all the experiences of the future as well, the potential for you to heal, and yet the fear and anxiety as well. And as you walk to this space, like I said, the first thing that comes to mind is the most important. That first image, that might be a clearing or a space in the outdoors, yet for others, it might be a building of some sort. And for others yet, it's something completely unique to them, like a castle up in the clouds, a filing cabinet, or a boat on the water. And yet, as you walk towards that space with the intent of going to where those experiences are stored, allow whatever comes to mind to be that space. And once you're there, I want you to just find a comfortable place to sit or lie down. Maybe it's a blanket or pillows or that comfy chair that you like, or a bench overlooking that space. I'll give you a few moments to just sit in that space and time. And now as you follow my voice, I want you to imagine that there's a little bonfire or wood stove nearby. And right next to that is a bin. I want you to go around and find anything in that space that seems cluttered or that you want to get rid of or change or clean up. Especially find the thing that represents the melorheostosis and the effect it has on you. The anxiety, the fear, the frustration, the anger, any of that. Find something that represents it, pick that up, bring it over and place it in the bin. Do that quickly, easily, like in the snap of a fingers. That place will be tidy, clean, just like you want it, with everything all of the experiences that you've learned the lessons from, but no longer need to feel the emotional or physical sensations of. Put all of that in at the snap of this finger, it'll be done. Now, with all of that in the bin, you're going to, in a moment, take each item, and if there's only one, that's fine, and throw it in the fire. And before you do, I want you to forgive that experience for causing you any pain or suffering. Forgive yourself for having experienced any of that pain or suffering. And then just throw it in the fire. As you do, you can do that now, forgiving it and yourself, throwing it in the fire, and allow for the embers of that flame to grow and build, because energy can't be destroyed, but it can be changed. And as those embers float off of the fire, allow them to guide you towards that space, that thing that represents your immune system, that powerful healing system in your mind and your body, and allow yourself to guide towards this immune system, that thing that represents it, remembering the first thing that comes to mind is always the most relevant. And once you have that thing that represents your immune system, I want you to make it bigger, make it brighter, change it in any way that you feel you need to in order to make it just right. And as you find a way to present that immune system in your hypnotic space just the way that's appropriate to you, I'm going to ask you to go back down to that place that you rested at the beginning of this. And then just enjoy this space for a few more moments. That's right. And as you follow my voice, I want you to think of one word that represents everything good about how you feel in this space. One word that pulls together everything good in that space and in the world and in your life. And once you have that word, it becomes anchored into this space, so that any time you think it in your mind or say it out loud, you can come back to this space quickly and easily. And in order to fully anchor in that word, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath in and out, and at the end of that breath out, in your mind or out loud, say that word. And when you do, it will be forever anchored into this experience, so that any time that you want to return, you simply take a breath in and out and allow yourself to gently say that word. And you'll come back to this space to be able to just sit and be, or to pursue the things you want, or to change and get rid of any of those previous experiences that no longer serve you. Take that breath in now and out, and say that word gently in your mind as you just rest in this space now. That's right. Now I want you to get up from that space and imagine that within that space there's a target, like an archery target, and right in the center of that target is any of the useless and unnecessary pain that you have the potential to be free of right now. Put all of that pain, that suffering, that experience right in the center of that target. And when you do, in a moment, I'm going to make a noise. You're going to shoot through that target into a space where nothing disturbs you, nothing bothers you. And yet you'll have to be brave, because just for a moment as you pass through, you'll experience that pain again. Just for a millisecond, until you're free of that useless and unnecessary pain that you have the potential to heal from right now. Getting ready, putting all of that pain, all of that suffering right in the center of that target. Taking a breath in. Right through that target, right into that space where nothing disturbs you, nothing bothers you. Back onto that space where you can just sit, bring that word into that space. See the people that you love. See their faces, smiling, laughing. Feel that love build and grow inside of you, and fill any of that space that useless and unnecessary pain was. And as you fill yourself with that space, go back to where you were sitting or lying down, and just enjoy that space for a few more moments. That's right. And as you follow my voice, on the count of 5, you'll be right back to the present moment, back into your chair, back in front of the computer, and just noticing how much better you feel. And on the count of 5, you'll be able to come back to this space quickly and easily with the breath and that word anytime that you want. Focusing on this space more and more each day, and making that commitment to yourself to choose that healing each and every moment of each day. 1, coming to the surface 3 times, more relaxed, calm, and at peace. Before 5. Wide awake now. Hi. Notice, where's that pain gone? Where's that stress or anxiety gone? Notice on that scale from 0 to 10, how much better do you feel? It's pretty cool, isn't it? Now, this is something that I teach people for self-hypnosis, because you now have a space that is unique to you, that you can continue to develop. And any time that you go into that space, you'll notice that change, at least during and afterwards. It changes physically, because what's happening before that experience, any of that stress or pain, anxiety, whatever it is that you wanted to make a change of, It was a pain survival loop, that 1-2 loop that was happening deep in the brain. And the hypnotic space that I provided you the opportunity to experience was a thriving loop. It was engaging other parts of your mind and your body that allowed you to break down some of those pain loops. And when I'm guiding you through it, you probably didn't think about what you're going to do for supper tonight, or the conversation you had with someone else. You might have, but for the most part, because you're engaged in this and you're interested in it, hopefully, that it was engaging that thriving loop and that you're focused in it. When you do this at home, it's going to be different, because every time you experience, whether you call it self-hypnosis, meditation, mindfulness, whether this is something that it changes every time. And I want to teach you something about that space. Well, that's supposed to be an infinity symbol. It's not quite great, but it's there. Right in the middle of this infinite awareness is our present moment. Because if I got you to bring an awareness to my voice, sure, you can listen and follow that. But if I said bring an awareness down to your toes, your feet, then you're going to automatically, boom, your awareness is there. Or back to that hypnotic space that you're just in, and automatically your mind goes to that. So our awareness is infinite. And yet, right in the center of that awareness is the present moment. And when you practice this at home, your mind will wander. It'll start to go to a thought of supper. Maybe it's an anxious thought about your pain or upcoming surgery or something you learned. And there's a moment that you have this awareness. Oh, wait, I'm thinking. I'm supposed to be using this space for the hypnotic space to rest and relax and digest. That moment you have a choice. You can continue on whatever thought you had, or you can choose to come back to the present moment. And then you'll be in that hypnotic space, breathing, relaxing, sitting, doing whatever you want in that space. And then all of a sudden your mind will start to wander again. And then, oh shoot, right, I'm thinking again. Okay, then you have that choice, right, back to that space. This is one of the misconceptions about self-hypnosis, about meditation, that it's an elimination of thoughts. No, it's not that. Even someone trained in meditation, a Buddhist monk, is still going to have thoughts when they meditate. It's more about the refocus back to the task at hand that's important. And when you train your brain to go back to that present moment, that hypnotic space, that's engaging that thriving loop. Then the stress, that's that pain survival loop. Then back to the thriving. And it's that constant change over time that allows you to reflect back and see, hey, that conference last year when I learned this tool was a starting point for me to start to believe and think differently, to understand that I can make a change because I didn't do a sweet thing to you. Every one of you watching this right now will have a different experience. And it's cool having this over a virtual session where I am not even there with you right now because I really am not doing anything. I'm guiding you through a process that kept you in the present moment. And now you have a set of tools that you can continue to remain in that space and promote that healing. Now, how often do you think you would benefit from doing and being in this space? 1 time, 2 times, 3 times a day? How about how long for each of those sessions? A few minutes, maybe 10, 20? Now, whatever answer you said, that's the answer you go for. My recommendations is the more that you can engage in that space, the better. But if you like structure, 3 sets, 1 in the morning, 1 in the middle of the day, preparing for the evening, and 1 at night to prepare for sleep. And you keep using that space and your breath and that word to go to sleep, so that your last conscious thoughts is of that hypnotic space or of that breath or of that word that keeps reconnecting you back to the present moment, back to that hypnotic space. That will help you to be able to fall asleep faster, sleep more deeply, be able to return to sleep more quickly. So that 3 times a day is a good recommendation. And then for how long? I've had some do it for a few minutes if they can, and even for myself. 10 minutes is a nice number for someone who's just starting off into this space and practicing it. Set a timer for it, go for it. And yet the amount of time that the research shows gets the most benefit is 20 minutes. And you might be thinking, oh, 20 minutes, that's a long time. And we're in that space for probably about 20 minutes with me right now. I'm sure that felt like just a few moments. Because when you practice and train that space, you'll start to crave that healing space, so that you're not only getting healing when you're sleeping, but you're providing an opportunity for that healing during the day. And that recommendation, 3 times 20 minutes a day, imagine an hour of that relaxation, that peace, that calm, how much that's going to promote a healing environment to make changes to your hands, Melorheostosis, wherever it is. Now, this is also something you do with your eyes open. You don't need to be in a dark room, headphones in, and quiet for 20 minutes. That practice, I think, is essential to make a change and provide a foundation for you to build from, and to set a certain expectation within your body as well for that healing environment. And yet, if you're doing dishes or cutting up vegetables or going for a walk, just take a breath, bring that word, bring that space into it, because it's all about engaging in this present moment. If you're having thoughts or fears and anxieties about your condition, about appointments, about whatever it is, just having a tool to just breathe and come back can make all the difference. It's an international course from the Bright Path. It's one that I took a while back for meditation. If you search the Bright Path, you might be able to have something nearby you, and that's something that I would recommend if you want to learn more about a different kind of a tool, a meditation tool that takes these principles into account. At the end of the day, though, it's about engaging that thriving loop. And that pain that I had, the numbness, the frustration, the anger, the anxiety, the fear, those were all those survival loops. And from when I was a kid, 10 years old, over a decade of those thoughts of living with an unknown rare condition and then finding out it's melorheostosis, it created an overactive, tired mind. My choice is to accept my condition, my choice to believe in my body's ability to heal and to change. It laid the foundation to continue making choices that promote my healing. These choices, in a very real way, turned on those thriving loops in my brain. And instead, when I was aware of having those unhelpful thoughts or sensations, I had a tool. I had a choice. To turn on my thriving loops with different tools that I learned. Now you do too. I wish you great success with using self-hypnosis to turn on your thriving loops. And I thank you for interacting with this presentation. Please leave a comment about what your hypnotic space is and how it made you feel, or send me an email at info@rethinkpainworkshop.com. That's one of my most gratifying parts of this job, is learning people's experiences in that space, because everyone is so unique and different. Follow me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram for posts from Monday to Friday. I've started a new YouTube series called Pop Culture Healing, and this is where I talk about references to healing from movies and books and how to unlock these powers in yourself. I've done episodes on Star Wars Force Healing, The Matrix. I'm doing one on Marvel Infinity Stones right now. I'm going to do Avatar and Harry Potter's, all kinds of things that I'm really excited about. It's one of my boys again. I'm also working on a course with my hypnophysio colleague Damien called Hypnotic Pain Principles and Techniques. It's going to be in New Zealand from March 12th to 13th of next year. Love to see anybody if you want to come to New Zealand. Borders will be open hopefully by then. But anyways, after that, we're going to be expanding globally from there to teach other health professionals how to use hypnosis in their sessions to help to improve people's pain and anxiety and fear. And to finish, as part of the Melorheostosis Conference, I've made a promotion for anyone impacted by Melo, or any health professionals treating someone with Melo wanting to learn some new tools. You'll get 50% off my Rethink Pain Masterclass. So that has the pain game, which I mentioned at the beginning. It's a self-management tool that I put together about the most effective parts of my management over the years. Also has the 1 day to improve. It's just dozens of different techniques to improve. There's a few parts from that, the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins videos that you'll be able to get access to within this conference, and the handouts for that and self-hypnosis. Those are all from that Rethink Pain Masterclass. So if you want 50% off for that, click on the Get My Masterclass button, and there's information in the booth about the coupon code to use during the checkout. I wish you all great success, because the more we all heal, the more we all heal.